Hey, welcome everybody. So I think we'll just dive right in because I know we only have an hour, and if people jump in as I get started, that's okay. But welcome. My name is Kelly Pieper. I am a therapist, a supervisor, and a consultant. I'll say a little bit more about me in just a second. There it is. So I have been a therapist practicing in the Twin Cities area. So I'm in Minnesota. The accent might give it away. Um, for the past 10 years. And I specialize in early childhood mental health and permanency and adoption issues, as well as reflective supervision and consultation. I'm rostered in child parent psychotherapy if people are familiar with that. But I practice in a variety of settings, from intensive kind of day treatment to more outpatient settings. And I always say this up front, like my lens and everything that I talk about is impacted by and will forever be impacted by the identities that I claim and the upbringing I have. So I'm white, cisgender, female, straight. I was raised lower middle class in a small town with pretty strong Christian values that I think have helped shape kind of my outlook on life, for better, for worse, but just like to own those things coloring in my perspective, and being open to challenge where things may not jive with other people's identities or the way that other people see the world. So I want to be upfront about that right away. So we only have an hour. It's pretty short, so I'm gonna kind of rapid fire. If you have questions, feel free to chat them, send them to Vanessa. She will kind of jump in and interrupt me at points to ask questions. I welcome questions. I welcome challenge. That's okay. I take on a pretty conversational style, I think, so feel free. But our agenda for today is really talking about what is safety, the importance of relationship as a buffer when things don't feel safe, and then really helping caregivers be a child's safety. So I'm going to try and kind of breeze through the first part because I think the larger kind of end, the helping caregivers, is more strategy focused. Hopefully has some things that you can actually take away and use. So I'll try and kind of get to that quickly, but so we'll just dive right in. So I want to start with just the idea of what is safety. So safety is, by definition, freedom from danger, threat, risk, or injury. But there's a lot of wiggle room in this definition. And so safety is based on your experience and perceptions. What feels risky or safe to you may not feel risky or safe to me. And how we interpret and perceive threats is all based on our experience, the people we have come across, the situations we have been in. Our sense of safety can rapidly change sometimes, and other times it takes a very long time to change that sense of safety. Typically, we go from feeling safe to unsafe pretty quickly. It takes a much longer time for us to go from feeling unsafe to safe. So when I talk about this, I always say, think about being in your car, and you're safe, you're driving down the road, and then all of a sudden somebody cuts you off and you have to make a really abrupt maneuver. Your heart pounds, your breathing changes, and if you're like me, that doesn't go away the second after you realize that the threat is past, right? That follows you home. And you go home and to calm yourself down, you talk about it and you tell your partner or your children or whoever it might be, like, hey, this guy cut me off, and you stay escalated for a period of time. And that is typical, and that's true for all of our experiences. The experiences that we have create expectation, which then influence how we perceive the world in the future. So it really changes what we expect from people based on what we have encountered as being safe versus unsafe. So safety really allows us to learn and to grow the way that we are meant to learn and grow. Safety allows us to form relationships. It allows us to heal when things don't go quite right, because we know that we get hurt physically, emotionally. Hurt happens. But when we are safe, we can heal. When we are not safe, we do not heal well. And safety allows us to rest and recharge. And literally in our brain, our brain doesn't sleep well. It doesn't create that deep, meaningful sleep that allows us to learn and kind of solidify connection if we are not feeling safe. And these things are true for all people. But when we think about kids, they are exponentially more important just because of the rapid fire nature of development and brain development. So I want to touch a little bit on the difference between physical safety and relational safety, because there is a big difference. Physical safety means being free from danger, threat, risk, or injury within our body. Relational safety means being free from those things within a relationship, but it also doesn't just include our body, right? So our relationships, relational safety doesn't just mean that our body is safe, that our physical presence is safe. It also means that our mental, emotional, and spiritual context is safe. We have much more limited control over physical safety. Like, we can only control us. We can't control other people. We can't control world events. We can't control, all the things that happen to us that might limit our safety, which means that we often feel like we can't keep children safe, and that provides us with a lot of anxiety. But we can create this safe relationship. And what we'll talk about today, kind of for the rest of the presentation, is this means that the world is a scary, scary place for parents. I'm a parent. It's a scary place. It's scary. But it also means that our relationship is powerful and can be that buffer to some of that lack of safety within the world and in situations for our children. Our relationship with our children provides the bumpers of bumper bowling, right? It is that thing that keeps us on track and can keep things moving forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship and the power of a relationship. So a relationship is really the way that we learn. And this is true for adults. This is true for kids. If you think about the year in school or the class you took where you learned the most, and I ask you, what made it connect for you? What made that learning happen? Rarely are you going to say, we had a really great textbook, right? The textbook was on point. No, you're going to talk about your teacher, right? You're going to talk about how the information was presented in a way that felt right for you, that your teacher saw you as a person and all the things that you brought. We exist in relationship and we learn in relationship. So for children, the relationship really provides a context for how to make sense of situations and experiences. So we, as young children, depend on our caregivers for information, and we see this with very, very little kids, babies. When they're in a new situation or a new person walks into the room, they look at their caregivers. And they look for their caregiver's assessment on their caregiver's face to say, are we good? Is this okay? And based on the reaction of their caregiver, they sense safety or they sense a lack of safety. And then they adjust their behavior accordingly. So the young children, and this continues to happen just in little different ways. When children don't understand, they create their own meaning. And this is really, really, really tricky because kids don't know that they don't understand. They think they do, right? But they're actually making their own meaning and their own connections. So this is where, kids will start to think that they caused something to happen. The way they talked to somebody, the way that they acted made the next thing that happened in their day happen. And that is not accurate. But it isn't like kids are bringing this to us and saying, oh, hey, like mom or dad or grandma or grandpa did this thing. I was really mean to my little brother this morning. Did that mean that I failed my spelling test? They don't, because the connections just come for them and they make it and they interpret it. So they rely on us to provide that meaning. And sometimes we as adults assume that if kids aren't talking about it, they're not thinking about it. And that is very, very, very false. They are simply creating their own meaning. And so we want to make sure that within that relationship, we are able to support kids in understanding their situations and experience. And they're not reliant on this own definition that they have created that often isn't accurate just because of where they are developmentally. Through relationship, we also understand what to expect and what not to expect from ourselves, others, in the world. In that relationship, we learn what am I good for? What am I going to grow up to be? Am I a good kid? Am I a bad kid? Who am I? We learn what to expect from others. Like, can I trust people? Can I expect that people will do what they say? Can I expect people to help me? Do people think good things about me? Do people like me? And in that relationship, we develop an understanding of what to expect from the world. Like, is the world a really scary place? Are people good or bad? Like, why do bad things happen? These are big questions. And we have the ability within our relationship to really foster in kids a sense of self-determination, self-efficacy, self-esteem, where they believe that they are capable and that other people can be trusted and the world has something to offer them. Or within our relationship, we can do the opposite. And so we can either have our relationship be a real buffer for some of the stress, or we can have the relationship, not be. So I want to emphasize this. A safe relationship does not and cannot prevent bad things from happening. We can't do that. We can't. But what a safe relationship does is it helps a child maintain a sense of safety within that relationship. And that sense of safety allows for that continued growth and development. We cannot wrap our kids up in bubble wrap as much as we would love to. We cannot keep them safe from all the bad things that the world has to offer. But we can, and we can help other people. We can help our clients and others that we work with kind of understand how they, as parents or caregivers, can be that safety for kids that allows that continued growth and development. So what is a safe relationship? This is all great, but what does it look like? A safe relationship is largely predictable and consistent. A child knows what to expect from their caregiver, regardless of the situation. Within a safe relationship, we are allowed to make mistakes without fearing punishment, guilt, or shame. We have the ability to ask questions, explore meaning, develop understanding, and kind of get a sense that the world can be safe for us, or the world can be unsafe for us, but we always know that we are safe, or that we can be safe in this relationship. A safe relationship allows a child to be vulnerable enough to ask for and allow help. So if we have those really safe relationships with kids, or a kid has a really safe relationship with a parent or caregiver, they are allowed to ask for help. and those requests for help are honored, and they accept the help that is given. And a safe relationship allows a child to express a range of feelings without being shut down or invalidated. So this is kind of what a safe sort of space looks like. So how can we use the relationship as a buffer? The relationship can provide the child with that continued sense of safety, and allows the child to recognize that sometimes bad things happen, but I can trust my caregiver with my feelings, to answer my questions, to help me, and to be there for me. Um, we can't fix things for kids as much as we want to. We cannot solve all the problems that they have. We can't make sure that they aren't going to get hurt every single day. But what we can do is be the safe place to talk about it, to let those feelings out, to try and think about solutions when you're ready to think about a solution, with the reinforcement that we can't fix it, and that's okay. The relationship then supports the child to maintain that growth, even in difficult situations or when there's threats to physical or relational safety from others. We still have that place that we can go. So that is kind of the relationship as a buffer. So I kind of whipped through that first kind of introduction sort of information, but if people have questions or there's things that, because I kind of went fast and furious before we get into how we support other people in creating those safe places within relationships, I'm happy to see if there's any questions. We're good. All right. So the $1 million question is, how do we create safe places within our relationships, and how do we support our clients to develop those relationships for themselves? I kind of break this down into 3 categories. So I say that the 3 things that we need to create that relational safety are approach, information, and feelings. So when I think about approach, essentially it boils down to children are trusting that our reaction and attitude towards them are going to be generally consistent, and they have our positive regard and acceptance. Even when they mess up, even when they do bad things, that's not saying that we condone the things they do all the time, but that we don't think that they are bad kids. We don't think there's fundamentally something wrong with them. We believe that they are good human beings. And our approach matches that. Information, so children trust that we will tell them the truth, help them understand even complex situations, and welcome questions and chances to talk about things. And we'll kind of dive into each of these a little bit more thoroughly too. And then feelings, children trust that their feelings are allowed, honored as true, and are not problems to be solved. Adults love solving problems. We're so good at it. But kids don't need us to solve all their problems. And so when we think about feelings and relational safety, the feelings is being allowed to have those feelings without a parent or caregiver being uncomfortable with them and trying to fix them. And that our children trust that we will help them understand new or overwhelming emotions. So even though this emotion is scary because it doesn't feel good, I trust that my caregiver can help me make some sense of it. So we'll kind of spend a little bit of time diving in to each of these. So approach. We'll break it down into consistency and positive regard and acceptance. So consistency, we don't always have to be at 100%. So I'm not advocating that everybody has to be on it all the time. I am not. I get tired. I get cranky. I get hungry. I get hangry. That's okay. we don't have to be 100% consistent. When we talk about consistency, we're talking about a general sense of consistency. I generally know what to expect. And when something feels out of the ordinary, I know why. So if I, as the caregiver, can say, I am so tired, I am so sorry, I don't have all of the capacity, all of the ability to do this right now. I'm so tired because I didn't sleep last night and I had a really crazy dream. We speak it out loud so kids understand that this reaction A is not typical. We understand the reaction isn't typical, and there's a reason why the reaction isn't typical that isn't a threat. Because oftentimes, and the younger the child, the more true this is, children are egocentric by nature. They're made to be. The more we don't talk about, and the more difference there is, the more likely the child is to perceive that there's something about them that explains that difficulty, that explains that difference in approach. So I made mom mad, or I did something wrong, or there's something about me. So speaking out loud, anything that's affecting our consistency as we would like it, is really important, and really helps kids understand why we may not be on our A game right then. And kids feel safer when they can predict your reaction. When they know what to expect from you, it creates that relational safety. So even kids who have parents who have a big reaction right away and then come back and fix it on the back end, kind of know what to expect. And the parents can then say, or the caregivers can then say, you know that this is what happens, right? And I'm working on it. Like, I have this big reaction right away, and then I'm allowed to think about it, and it's okay, and we figure it out. So it doesn't even mean that your reaction always has to be perfect. But if we can help kids understand that, it's very, very helpful. We are not robots. And so I want to, and I think I say this later, but I want to give everybody permission. And one way that I think is super big and how we can encourage kids to speak freely in their feelings is by doing so ourselves. Like, to say that everything's okay and that mom's always all right and that everything's great is not true. And so I'll talk a little bit about it later, but that's part of that consistency. We can name those things. We can put words there. Positive regard and acceptance. So aim for authentic connection and acceptance before anything else. Kids see through half-hearted attempts to make them feel better. This often can be fostered through child-directed play, and then extended to other situations. So this is one of the reasons why I encourage parents that I work with, regardless of age, really, of their children, to play with their kids in ways that their kids like. So if they're 8 and they can play soccer, if that's not physically, something that a parent can do, can they throw the ball around? Can they kick it around the living room? Can they somehow have fun with their kids? Because that fosters that positive regard and acceptance. And then the child feels accepted and that their parent thinks good things about them. And then when we're confronted with a high stress moment, where things are kind of, I say, vibrating at a very high frequency, right? Like it's things are tense. What happened within that child-directed play and that positive regard can be continued, and it can be maintained within those moments of difficulty when we have it outside. There are so many opportunities every day to do this in really simple ways, but just showing, the genuine interest about a child's experience and asking questions about their day is great. But I always, and this is so, so, so hard for parents. So we'll talk about it at the end, some ways to encourage play. Parents struggle, caregivers struggle with play. We got a lot of things to do. We have laundry to fold. We have dinners to serve. We have jobs to get to. We have all of these things, and we lose our ability to be silly and playful. And being silly and playful is the language of children. And if we are not silly and playful, we are often missing opportunities to speak a child's language. And so if we can encourage us, if we're parents, the parents we work with, the caregivers we work with, to find, not always, but just the moments in the day where you can be silly and playful, where you can let some things go, where you can laugh and those kinds of things together. That's so important. And practicing repair and reconnection when relationships break. And that happens. And I think for the families that we work with, normalizing that, like, yeah, we're not perfect people and we lose it with our kids sometimes. And that doesn't mean that your relationship is broken forever. Or even if you don't have time because you're busy and things just did not go the way you needed them to go today. If you can encourage the caregivers you work with to loop back with their kids, to go back to their kids and explore those opportunities and think about them and say that they're sorry, that is super powerful. The single best model for being able to accept accountability and apologize is those around us, are the behaviors that we see around us. So if you can model that for your kids, like, hey, I'm sorry, I lost my cool. That wasn't cool. I want to figure this out, and I'm really sorry. That is an incredible opportunity to model positive regard and acceptance, because it communicates to a child that you are important enough for me to repair this. You are important enough for me to come back and say, I'm sorry. You are important enough for me to own a mistake. And my mistake and me being right is not as important as who you are as a person. And that is so, so important to be communicated to kids. So I often get this question of, like, fantastic, but, like, what does that sound like? Like, give me words, give me language, tell me how. And so I kind of put together this, and I think sometimes those of us who work with kids, and sometimes this language comes really naturally, but I have found that parents really appreciate and caregivers really appreciate actually writing some language down, things that they can say, go-to words, phrases, because it doesn't come easily, and a lot of us were not raised this way, and these are new kinds of concepts that we're playing with, and so sometimes we need that support, we need that guide. But there are some examples here of different language that can be used to support the development of that positive regard, and the consistency. So I don't I don't need to read them all. I'll pick out a couple, but just kind of developing that language is so cool. And every parent is going to be different in how their language comes together, and that's okay. And there's no right way and wrong way. The biggest thing is just that we're doing it. But some things that you might want to say is, like, I'm so glad that you shared your sad, worried, mad, whatever they are, feelings with me. Knowing how you are feeling helps me kind of understand more, and not how to fix it, but just knowing what's happening for you, because I love you and I want to know how you're feeling today. Sometimes I can help and sometimes I can't, but it's always important to me how you're doing and how you're feeling. Um, you know, why don't we play together for 10 minutes? You can choose anything you want to play with, and we can just have playtime. And you can put, if you have 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes. If you have 5 minutes, you have 5 minutes. I guarantee kids will take it. Um, they love it. It's going to be their best time of the day. Um, so there's just some different examples here, that hopefully provide some language and some kind of guide for how we might be able to do this with kids. All right, so information. This is a big one. Children trust us to provide them with information within safe relationships. Lying to children erodes trust. We often are not truthful with kids because we want to protect them from the worry, the sadness, the pain. That is a good intention. But we often cannot protect them from the worry, the sadness, the pain. And when we aren't upfront and we aren't truthful with our kids in a way that is developmentally appropriate, and I want to emphasize that we don't need to give our kids all the nitty-gritty details of everything that's going on, but we can find ways to provide them with truthful, appropriate information. Because when we say things like, oh, Fifi the poodle just went up to a farm, right? They're hanging out at a farm when they actually died. Then when that child finds out, and they will, they don't trust you anymore. Like, you gave them, you their caregiver, you their parent, provided them with false information, and that hurts. That doesn't feel good. Also, providing the truth can be a powerful tool to create more safety. When we acknowledge that there's a risk or something happening, but my caregiver is going to talk to me about it, that's really, really powerful, and supports them starting to understand some feelings. Like I mentioned in the beginning, when kids don't have information from adults, they make sense of those experiences and themselves, and they're often wrong. Children hear all, and they're incredibly perceptive. What they don't have is all of the life experience that their parents and caregivers do to understand why things happen, how things happen, sequencing, timing, the way the world works, right? The legal system, the education system, the news. We have years and years and years and years of experience with making sense of all of this information. And all kids have are sound bites, and they put them together like a little puzzle. And what their puzzle looks like is not what it's supposed to look like. It looks all jumbled because it's not right. And so children need us to provide that information if we want their puzzle to make sense. When we give kids information in a developmentally appropriate way, we show them that we aren't going to keep things from them. We normalize that we don't have secrets, right? Because secrets can get kids in situations that we do not want them to be in. And if we normalize that we don't keep secrets, we don't hide things from each other, that can be a really powerful thing. And that can really support that relational safety. Telling kids the truth really communicates that it is important to talk about things even if they're hard. And that we need to be able to have a space to talk and process. We communicate that they deserve to know about the issues that impact them. Kind of going back to that positive regard, like, I love you enough, I think highly of you enough to understand that you need some more information here. And again, we're talking about developmentally appropriate information, but they deserve some information. And it communicates that even when we can't control situations, we can figure out and tackle challenges together. So a lot of times adults don't tell kids things because we don't have answers. And we don't like when we don't have answers. We get very uncomfortable when we don't have answers. And so part of what we then offer is just like, don't worry about it, right? Like, it's not a big deal. Just, it's fine. Everything's fine. We do that because we don't have an answer, and we feel like saying that is going to create more anxiety. Often it creates the anxiety for us. and not the anxiety for the kid. And so when we say, like, you know what, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know when Uncle Jimmy is going to come home again. And we can be sad about that together. I wish that I knew too. I wish I knew where he was when I think about him. That allows kids to, again, have that safety within our relationship, even though that world is scary, even though we don't know what happened to his Uncle Jimmy. We have this relationship, this connection that allows us to feel secure. And when possible, we try and anticipate what worries, questions, or concerns kids will have and make that part of the conversation. So we can let them know that it's always okay to ask questions, and I'll try and answer. And even if I don't have an answer, we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about how that doesn't feel good, but I won't lie and I won't sugarcoat it. I'll give you information that you need. And we can be upfront about the fact that sometimes kids don't need all the information, right? Like that, I will give you enough information to help you understand what's happening, but that doesn't mean that you're going to know everything, because sometimes it's grown-ups' job to keep kids safe, and sometimes how we keep kids safe is we keep some of the information that we know is going to be too hard, and that's okay too. And then we reinforce routines and things that are staying the same or things that we know to be true. So even when the world feels upside down, we can talk about things, we can answer kids' questions, we can give them the information. And it's really powerful then to kind of back end that with, but here are the things that we still know. Here are the things that are staying the same. Yep, you know what? We don't know where Uncle Jimmy is, and that's really hard. But what I do know is that we are staying here and we aren't going anywhere. Reinforcing what is true, what we know, what feels secure, what is concrete. So when we provide that little bits of ambiguity, we can reinforce it with some of the things that we do know. So again, the language, the hardest part about this is just trying to figure out what is developmentally appropriate, right? What information can kids handle? When can they handle it? And I have like my child development textbook that I had in graduate school, and I still page through that sometimes when I'm dealing with difficult situations to try and understand what might be the best way to phrase this or to talk about this, because I know I need to. But here's just some basic kinds of things. Uncle is in a place called jail right now, and he had to go there because he stole something that wasn't him, and it's part of his punishment. And then I'm going to anticipate where kids are going to go with this, which is kids go to jail, right? That's a really common one. And kids say that to each other, I'm going to take you to jail. You're going to get the police called on you. This is one way that grown-ups can be punished. But bigger kids don't usually go to jail, and little kids never go to jail. And so we're taking what we know might be a fear for them, and we're calling it out right away. Grandpa's in the hospital because he's sick and there's something wrong with his heart. The doctors are working really hard to take care of him. I hope that he gets better, but I don't know what's going on. And that's scary and confusing, and it's scary and confusing for me too. And we can have those feelings because it's hard. Instead of saying what we want to say to comfort kids, right, which is Grandpa's going to be fine. Everything's okay. Grandpa's going to be fine. We don't know that. And then if that's not true, and we as the grownups really know that that's probably not the way this is going, it's really important that we don't lie to kids about that. Like, and the doctors are saying that they're not sure that they can help Grandpa anymore. And I'm really sad about that. And it's okay to be sad about that too. We'll figure out those feelings together. It's so hard because it's often the caregiver's discomfort that's really impacting their ability to have these conversations. So when we work with families around that, I always talk to my clinicians and people that I supervise about really connecting with the parents' experience, because when we're encouraging parents to do these things, but we're not seeing it, there's usually something for the parent that's in the way. It's not the kid, it's usually the parent. And if we can join with the parent and understand it, we might be able to support them in phrasing it or using it in a different way that feels more comfortable for them. I work really hard to keep you safe, but I can't always keep you from getting hurt. If you do get hurt, I'm going to do everything I can to help you feel better. Parents oftentimes will say, or caregivers will often say things like, I keep you safe from everything. Or, when you're with me, you will never get hurt. Well, that's just unrealistic as a parent. Like, your kids fall off the playground, they end up with broken bones, scrapes, cuts. We let go of them when they learn how to ride their bicycle. And so saying, like, I will always keep you safe is false. It's not that I'll always keep you safe. I'll work hard to keep you safe. But when you do get hurt, I'm going to be there. I will be there. And I can handle that. So it's not so much that we reinforce our ability to keep them safe as much as we call out the things that we know we can't do for them and the things that we can, right? That's what creates that relational safety with that information. Feelings. We don't instantly understand feelings. A lot of adults still don't understand feelings. A lot of adults who actually do this for a living still need help understanding feelings. Like, it's not an easy concept. And so the way that kids learn about feelings is not from reading a book, and it's not from just experiencing them one day and they're like, oh, I think that was disappointment. Like, no, they learn by having the adults around them, the adults within those safe relationships label and support them in understanding those feelings. And so the first kind of thing that I always encourage parents to do is label their own feelings and the feelings they believe the child might be having. That doesn't mean that we are saying you are feeling mad. We're saying, I think you might be mad, or it looks like you are mad. It looks like you're feeling really sad because I see you crying. And maybe it's not sad, maybe it's something else, right? We're open to the fact that it could be something else, but we're labeling what we're seeing and putting a name, an emotion to that behavior, to what we're seeing for ourselves and other people. That helps kids start to make that connection. Most of the behaviors that arise, I say in kids, but quite frankly, this is for everybody, are because of feelings. In kids, again, I'm going to say also other people, most people, lots of people. A lot of feelings look like anger. Anger feels better. It feels safer. It feels more powerful. It feels in control. It feels strong. And so oftentimes kids will hear over and over, like, oh, it looks like you're feeling really mad. And what we see might be mad, but what we want caregivers to do and what we want to encourage caregivers to do is find the and. You look like you are really mad and maybe disappointed, and I'm wondering if it's actually that you're feeling pretty sad that your friend couldn't play. Because we don't want kids to internalize that they're angry kids and that every feeling is anger. But a lot of things look like anger. And so we help kids kind of tease that out. And we try hard to identify what else could be there. We lead by example. We model that vulnerability and narrating emotions and being open to how you're feeling. Kids don't learn to do this without people around them doing it. And we as adults can help children understand that all feelings are okay, but not all reactions to feelings are okay. We can feel all of our feelings. We can't hurt other people, right? So we can have whatever feelings we have. We have to express those in a way that doesn't hurt or harm other people. adults can be really dismissive of kids' emotions unintentionally, not because they want to be, but because they want to help kids feel better. So you even see this. I was paging through a book the other day, and it said something like I didn't cry, I was brave. And I'm like, can't you cry and be brave? Or there's books that say like I felt scared and then I got brave. Like you can be scared and you can find you can find bravery within your fear. So I always help parents learn other ways instead of saying don't be mad, don't be sad. Um, Finding other ways to label that feeling, because we don't want to dismiss kids' feelings. We want them to feel safe to express that. And it, again, isn't because we want kids to feel dismissed. It's just because we want them to feel better. Like, you don't have to be sad. Like, there's 6 other people wanting to play with you, right? But if we can honor that feeling, my kid didn't get invited to a birthday party, but she got invited to another birthday party. So it's really easy for me to say, oh, don't be sad that you didn't get invited to this birthday party. You have this other one to look forward to. But we want to take that and challenge ourselves to say, yeah, it is sad and it is hard when you don't get invited. I'm happy that you got invited to this other one. What do you think we should get or bring or whatever? So we want to avoid kind of problem solving and viewing emotions as things to be fixed. And we do this a lot with sad, right? Like, how can I fix your sad? I want to fix your sad, fix, fix, fix. But that communicates to kids that we can't handle their feelings, that we need them to be happy. We want them to be happy, but the reality is we can't always be happy. Any adult knows that you can't be happy all the time. It doesn't work that way. And we need to be able to be comfortable in our sad and in our worried and our frustrated, if we want to be able to get through those in ways that don't create more problems. When in doubt, we just want to be with our kids through difficult emotions. We try not to let them feel their biggest feelings by themselves. And that creates that relational safety. Even though I can't fix this feeling for you, I can be with you while you feel it. That's huge. And that's so uncomfortable. And I don't want to make that sound easy, because for parents and caregivers, that is hard, right? It is hard to see our babies struggle, and feel like we can't do anything. But it's really, really good for creating that emotional safety, for them to have those feelings and be able to express them with us. So I have some language. Again, I'm not going to read them all, but just kind of some coaching, some guidance, that you can provide families with. Like, here are some ways. But even if you sit down with them and say, "Hey, what are some words that you would use to help your kids feel they can feel their feelings? How can we phrase this?" Because we want it to feel authentic, right? We want it to feel like it's coming from the parent and the caregiver. And so, how does that caregiver say that? How can we come up with a way to honor our kids' feelings when we really want to fix it? What would you say here? And everybody and every family can have their own language and their own words for things. And that's beautiful. That's that connection. That's that safety in that relationship. Our biggest challenges, many of the mistakes that we make are because we want to protect our kids. They're well-intentioned. We want to protect our kids. The first challenge is talking about hard things. It's just so essential that we show kids that it's both okay and necessary to talk about things that are hard. We often feel challenged to do this because it challenges our own regulation. We don't have the answers. We feel powerless. And that leads kids to not bring up topics as they get older, to us. They don't bring us as many things, because they don't say this, but they don't know that we can handle it. And just because they aren't talking about it doesn't mean they're not thinking about it. I said that before, but they rely on us to initiate these conversations about hard things and to model how to do that and be okay within our own emotions and our own struggles and our own not having the answers. They want the relationship more than they want an all-knowing, all-powerful parent. They'd rather connect with you than have you have all the answers. Our second challenge is validating and allowing difficult emotions because we want our kids to feel comforted. Our reactions lead children to believe that, it's accepted or desired to feel positive feelings. Like we always want our kids to be happy. Again, not bad, coming from a good place, but it kind of subversively communicates that if you're not happy, then something's wrong. And feelings aren't wrong. We have them every day. It communicates that they're not understood and that it's not normal for them to feel this way because happy is normal. And so it is challenging for us because it makes us feel like we're failing when we can't make our kids feel better. And calling that out for parents is huge, is that it's hard to feel like you're failing your kids. And often it feels that way. Doesn't mean we are. And it arouses our deep feelings too. Creating space for kids doesn't mean fixing it, it means sharing it. We share their feelings, we don't fix their feelings. So I want to share, these last couple of slides are just some tools for things that we can use to help create that relational safety. So books are a fantastic way to introduce kids to difficult topics. They're written in language that's already developmentally appropriate, so we don't necessarily need to come up with that language ourselves. It normalizes things, right? If they wrote a book about it, I can't be the only one struggling with this, right? If they wrote a book about it, then I'm not the only one that feels this way. And that is huge for kids. And we can use books, and it doesn't just have to be books that are written specifically for this social and emotional stuff. We can use lots of different books and just bring in the themes that we're seeing with our kids every day. I have a couple of book sources. The Pipelo Productions is a trauma-based books. They do a wonderful job of taking traumas and putting it in book form. They have books that highlight parental mental illness, difficulty with safety in the home, parent-child or parent-caregiver separation, and really do a beautiful job of kind of putting this in narrative in a way that a kid can really understand. The APA has a publisher called Imagination Press. There's a lot of really good stuff there. And there's the school library journal has an SEL, like a social emotional learning kind of thing, all really good resources. Play. Play is the most developmentally appropriate and innate way for children to learn and grow. And if we can help parents understand that talking, communication, like verbal communication, is the last thing that comes online for us. It is the first thing we lose when our regulation is challenged, and it is the last kind of connection to be made. And so play is something that allows for us to develop this connection, to deepen trust for each other. It allows for kids to experiment and experience emotions in a really non-threatening way that prevents this overwhelm and kind of allows the healthy separation. So I have a couple of tips for maximizing the benefits of play, allowing the kid to choose the topic and where it goes, trying very hard not to shut it down. And so some families get really reactive if kids bring out like toy guns or other things. But if we can allow it, it takes us somewhere. It takes us to where a kid needs it to go. And so I also say avoiding the temptation to teach or preach. We want to feel useful to kids. And so we'll be like, oh, what color is that? Or how many little bears are there? But we really want to keep, when we're having this like child-centered play, we really want to keep it in the play. allowing characters to have feelings without fixing the characters' feelings. Like that's something that adults do a lot is like, oh, like this child is sad and the character is sad. So I, the adult, am going to come in and I'm going to find ways to make this little character feel better. Again, it's not about fixing, it's about holding, it's about having, sharing. And then providing toys that allow for creativity and creation of a story. The toys that we have are important to how that narrative and how that gets created. So I have a couple of my favorite books here on this slide. These are great for kind of tackling some of these tough topics with kids. So you may have seen some of them, maybe some of them are new, but these are like some of my absolute favorites for different feelings, different situations. So you, I think, can download and go into the conference and like download all of the slides, which they will all be there. If you also have questions after, my contact information is there, so you can always shoot me a message and say, what was that book? And then here's some great play. So these are great toys for encouraging narrative without a defined storyline. So these aren't necessarily toys that have to be used in a way. They can be used in many ways. These are toys that allow kids to create meaning, to try on different roles, to use different voices. So I'm always really on the lookout for, and in my office, I try to have as many play toys that don't have a set function as much as allow kids kind of some freedom to have some definition in there and kind of create their own. Overall, the takeaway from today, I hope, is that we cannot eliminate our children's suffering. We cannot protect them from everything the world is going to throw at them. But the greatest gift that we can give our kids and the families that we work with is that safe relationship that really provides the buffer to those stresses, and working with families to figure out how they're going to create that relationship for themselves, because that is the most critical thing. And then this is me. So if there's questions, we have a couple of minutes. But again, all of this stuff is available. If you have questions after and we don't get to it, feel free to hit me up. My contact information is there. Happy to talk about it. But yeah. Any questions?
No questions, Kelly. Just a lot of comments on how they really like the languages that you shared, as well as the books.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the most common question that I get from parents too, is just like, tell me how. Or when I'm modeling it in session, it's like, it comes so easily to you. Yeah, because this has been my world for 13 years. Of course it comes easy. So it definitely is something that you can play with, but the concrete is nice. Cool. Do you want me to like stick around? I don't know how this all works with like.
Yeah, so we can end this session now, and then we do have our closing. But if anybody has any, other questions for Kelly, we'll both be online still. If you guys want to stick around for that.
Awesome. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.